Well, you are watching Smart Means Business. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko. It is Smart24 TV here live from Block 42 Nile Avenue. It is time for us to head into our SMB Insight this morning. And of course, this time around, we're looking at the electricity trade under the East African Community Power Pool. Well, there's an idea of reduction in costs of expenditure, especially countries that will be working together and sharing costs. And according to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, they've urged Ugandans to stop vandalizing electricity poles if we do not want to miss out on money from trading electricity. But not only that, the issue to do with load shed, we also don't want load shedding in our country due to this kind of electricity infrastructure vandalism. But in the East Side today, we look at electricity trade under the East African Community Power Pool, where Uganda is at the center point of trading the electricity to our neighboring countries. But of course, it should be a collective one, whereby we should not be engaging in electricity infrastructure vandalism, because it will affect the kind of electricity that we shall be exporting out to our neighbors.
One is that we've been able to agree on the next Secretary General. Secondly, we have been able to ratify the Office of the Independent Regulatory Body, which is in Kampala. Key output is that we have agreed on the framework which we are going to follow in our trading in electricity, so that going forward, countries will not spend a lot of money working alone, working out the modalities of trading with neighbors. What will be remaining is the agreement, the bilateral between the exporter and the importer of this electricity. We have also agreed that we will put in place a mechanism that will see taking over offices in a more amicable manner, and we have agreed on the rotational basis, especially for the chairpersons, the chairperson of the committee of ministers, the chairperson of the steering committee, and the chairperson of the independent regulatory board. Those ones will rotate, and we shall have a mechanism. Either we follow alphabetical or whatever, but we have subjected this with the committee, steering committee, which is going to look into it and submit to our next meeting, which is going to be an extraordinary meeting to be person to happen in June, to streamline the criteria, the methodology that we follow in electing these office bearers. So we have achieved. There is nothing that remained pending. Principally, we have agreed, and all the recommendations, the 7 recommendations that have been put forward to us, have been passed. And we have congratulated one of us, Egypt, for having organized the COP27, because COP27 was seen to be a meeting of Africa. So the African Power Pool is going to be a wide arrangement, because already bilaterally, like you said, we are trading. So, and we know that by 2024, we will see full implementation of whatever we put in place. Been trying to make sure that the structure is complete with the methodology and criteria of electing office bearers. But the trading is happening bilaterally. It is happening. But now the wider framework, which we've just passed, will give further guidance, further collaboration, so that now, instead of countries spending more money into coming up with arrangements, we shall just pick on the framework which is already passed by the East African Power Pool, and therefore we will be saving some money on some of the transactions. Is going to chase the vandals. Please bear your problems as Uganda. Tell your relatives to stop vandalizing this infrastructure. We will miss out. You know, we want to get power such that in case we encounter a challenge that we encountered when we shut down, we abruptly shut down Isimba. The infrastructure which we used to now get power from Kenya, if it is vandalized, we will be in darkness. So just tell Ugandans, stop this evil of cutting down the infrastructure which the East African Power Pool is going to use to get power from our neighbors. For a very long time, we have not been applying load shedding. Load shedding is recently done because of the damage that vandalism has brought to this country, where power has been cut off from the generation power plant. You can't evacuate it. You have it generated, but the road has been closed. So we will say that you people on that side, we will ration power so that we give power to this equally important side, maybe their hospitals, until we restore the vandalized infrastructure. The trading, like I've explained, will continue because we don't want to see power generated and it is not bought, it is not utilized. We'll be losing money. And more so, we don't see homes which are active at night. You know, the peak is between 6 and midnight.
The Council of Ministers of the East African Power Pool is composed of all the ministers of the member states. The member states being Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, Somalia, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. So those are the member countries of the East African Power Pool. So we're discussing, this was the 16th meeting of the Council of Ministers and also the 28th meeting of the Steering Committee. So we discussed a number of things and we made resolutions on some of them. One of which we're having a change of the Secretary General of the Secretariat sitting in Ethiopia. So we had that change. Then the next thing that we discussed was to do with the bilateral trading agreement, the framework that would govern the trading between the between the countries, and that was also amended, and it was sent to be studied by the different member states and concluded. So in June we shall have another meeting to conclude on that one. There are also inter-utility memorandum of understanding, and there are also the formulation of independent regulatory board. So those were the issues that we're discussing, and we believe they are pertinent in making the EAPP formidable institution.
What do you mean by inter-utility?
Okay, what I mean by inter-utility MOU, it's a memorandum of understanding that brings together the utilities. In Uganda, we are talking about the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company, we are talking about the Ketraco in Kenya, we are talking about Kenjin in Kenya, we are talking about Kenya Power, you are talking about the Ethiopian, you are talking about EEHC in Egypt. So those are the utilities, the ones that are serving the customers. Border will stand to benefit in two ways. One, there are those we are going to have transmission lines that cross different borders. And once those transmission lines cross the borders, the arrangement is that on each border point on where the transmission line passes, there is a substation. And so at that substation, there are step-down transformers that will make sure we distribute power in that particular area. So the people at the border will stand to benefit once those transmission lines are done. We are looking at the tariffs that will be real-time, that provide the market for the real-time, in that once we open the market with the neighboring countries, you have the different markets, the different countries quote on the price they can charge their power. And then the one who is buying will also offer his price. And we believe that that will bring in competition and people will pay at the price that they are comfortable with. That is why we are having the East African Power Pool, to harmonize all those kinds of trade. So in that kind of trade, we'll agree that we have a platform where everyone is giving his rates. Okay? So there is no one who is going to dictate on the other. You will wake up in the morning and declare you are Kenya, and you declare that I have reserved electricity, and I am charging at 2 cents. Then on the same platform, there is DRC that is saying I am charging at 1 cent. On the same platform, there is Ethiopia that says I am charging at 2 cents. Then you will make a decision on whether you are taking 1 or you are taking 2. So there will be no barriers to discuss. It is an open market. So we are opening the market for the entire region.
All right, and that was the SMB Insight in that having discussions regarding the electricity trade under the East African Community Power Pool. And with just 9:15, we are heading to our story preview. And joining us this morning to discuss more about what is coming up and what is trending amongst the business community is Hanifa, who is joining us this morning. We do have someone, Hanifa, on set to give us more details regarding how far the education sector is this week. Today, schools are officially reopened. Of course, there were discussions before the schools reopened about government setting up a school fees cap for private schools, especially with the fact that some private schools are apparently having higher charges compared to the rest. And the question is, who is going to be regulating this particular school fees? Because at the time we shall get to realize that school fees will now become way more expensive, and it will become even more difficult for certain parents to at least acquire or have their children acquire quality education due to the level of the hike in school fees. Samla Hanifa has more details regarding a report she's working on that will be airing tonight, and she's here to give us more of what to expect in this report.
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning. How was the weekend?
Weekend was fine.
Okay. So the education sector, briefly, this is a sector that is now under spotlight.
Yeah.
With the fact that in the month of February is when the academic year starts.
Yeah, it starts, and the exorbitant fees is now the issue on the order of the day. Parents are crying out, legislators are crying out, like something needs to be done, and the Education Committee presents a report that is not satisfying to the needs of the population and as well as the legislators, and it is rejected. On Thursday, they presented their report as far as the exorbitant fees is concerned with government-aided schools. What for them, according to them, the legislators were suggesting, Parliament was suggesting, the majority actually, we are suggesting that this fees issue to be dealt with, parents should be paying the money directly to government. The money goes to the consolidated fund. I'm talking about the government-aided schools, the schools, the traditional schools that we know, the Budos, the Nabisunsas, the Kawempe. So, and the committee rejects that. They're like, if parents spend money directly to the consolidated fund, it will disorganize their operations. You know, the bureaucracy that is there within accessing money from the consolidated fund, especially when money goes to the government, getting it back is a problem. So it will disorganize the school. Then government has to come out with a law that is going to streamline this fee structure. But then the Deputy Speaker of Parliament is like, no, the report is not satisfying. It is not addressing the issues of the issues at hand. So they give the committee another 1 month to go through and bring a better report that is more like addressing the issues at hand. Because it did not actually, the report that was presented did not address the issues, the concerns of the parents. Still schools have started today, and the fees is the same. In fact, they have added, the fees is more, it has doubled. Yeah, if you look at the fee structure of these traditional schools, regardless of what government suggested that fees be put down, it should remain the same. They have just increased it instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you look at this issue about Parliament and the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, not approving the first report that was set from the Education Committee, this is more like giving a go-ahead to schools now to charge.
Exactly, that is the point now, because this report was supposed to come before the schools begin, because that is what the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Mong was like, she addressed and she suggested, she actually ordered that this report be brought before schools begin, so that once the schools begin, they know what to do. They know that this is where Parliament stands on this, and this is what government has decided. You shouldn't hike fees. But then, if you push the report back for another month, it is not. Schools are not going to wait. Schools have already started, so it is an issue that might take even more than 1 month to be addressed. Probably be addressed for the next financial year or something like that.
Anyway, the kind of school fees we are talking about, what are some of the sample cases that have been highlighted? Because we may be speaking of schools having high school fees, and then maybe the viewers should at least ideally understand there are some predominant schools, or what we refer as to the first-class schools here in Uganda, which are having a high rate of school fees, and they're actually increasing these fees.
Yeah, every single parent wants their kids to be in those traditional, the schools that perform very well.
Yes.
If you look at the fee structure for Nabisunsa girls, it is 1.9 million, and Kawempe Muslim 1.5, King's College Budo 2.5, etc., etc. So the money keeps going. If you go to Chibuli, it is still 2 point something, and that is just the fees alone.
Minus the other
requirements that have to come up.
I know.
So it is a tough thing, and parents don't know what to do. Regardless, I have to take back my kid to school. Schools have started, and schools are not going to wait for that. So I would really concur with what some people suggest, that government should come up with a law, and the law shouldn't take long like the laws take long. They should come up with a law that is going to streamline this issue, because it is not going to stop. It is not going to stop schools from hiking their fee structure, since there is no law that stops them. You can just say something, government can direct. You can just say something over the media that you shouldn't do this, but if it's not allocated in the law, there's no law to stop me from doing that. You're not going to stop me from putting the fee structure regardless. Otherwise, we just have to pray for a better economy, so that parents can raise these fees.
Well, and of course it is the rush hour, or what you could call the time for the parents to actually try to take back their students or their children back to school. Well, of course, there are those who have the money to complete the school fees in time. There are those who are still financially struggling, and then still more, the schools are still increasing the prices, and this is not something that is likely to actually come to an end, unless when there is a law. And I repeat, when I say unless there is a law that is put in place to create a school fees cap, I don't see any time of us having school fees decreasing, or any maximum school fees put in place by the schools, because this is a private entity, and when it's a private entity, that means it belongs to the private sector, and private sector players may not be necessarily focused more on the education, but because it's private sector, they also want to make money. It is just business, and for business to prevail, you have to make profits. And at the time, the profits from private schools has to come from this particular tuition, or rather school fees. Tuition does apply to more of institutions But anyway, it is kind of the same situation because it is all tangible cash at the end of the day. And of course, to get more of that report, Sam924 will be giving you a more detailed one tonight in the Bulletin Business today at 9 p.m. Do make sure you will catch it up and set your alarms ready to let's catch up the Bulletin at 9 p.m. And as we are continuing to create room for various ventures in investment, as parents as well, you are as well reminded that maybe you can have a stand with Zabo. Zabo can help you to at least finance some of these particular dreams, and especially your long-term dreams, by investing in different intangible assets. Invest in government bonds today by using the USSD code *292# and follow the prompts. Remember, if you have no account yet, you can register with your national identification number with Zabo, and in the next 24 hours you'll be able to invest. Zabo markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. Remember that the minimum amount of investment is 15,000 Ugandan shillings, and also note that these markets are fully closed on the weekends and on public holidays. Zabo, my money, my future. Altex East Africa says, do something new. It's 25 minutes off the clock of 9 a.m. At past 9, I'll be getting back with Barija Andrew on ground. We're discussing still the education sector and the rush of taking back the children back to school. Good morning.